Hey guys, Breadstick here, back with the Shark for another episode of Down to the Wire. And today's episode, we're just gonna be kind of recapping, basically the last quarter that just happened in the NBA, coming from the beginning in December, the end of December to now, and just our thoughts and takes on it. But before we get into that, Dalton, I actually want to ask you. So, All Star voting is happening because as of right now, we do have All Star going on. So, but there has been some NBA players that are wanting to choose not to play in the All Star game. Tell me about that.
Well, for starters, the NBA All-Star Game is March 7th in Atlanta. So, so the fact that they're doing All-Star Game like in March is definitely a little strange because in the years past they were doing it in February. But I think the reason why is and I saw a post on it earlier today and like have like players like saying their thoughts and people are just saying that that's kind of dumb and stupid about it and I can see why because like some people don't even try. Like defense is hardly a thing in the All-Star game other than last year whenever they added like the points thing. But other than that, I mean, I think it's because the I think it's because the players aren't finding the joy in it anymore as much as they used to.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think maybe as soon as they added the whole system between the not being in the West and the East anymore, but more of team captains, I think maybe that's when the defensive end of the game kind of took over and people actually started to play defense. But yeah, it just seems like this year with COVID and with everything else, it kind of just like took a toll on the rest of the stuff that kind of happens in the All Star weekend, and it's kind of All Star weekend is kind of for the fans, and I bet with
Mhm.
COVID being an issue, it's not going to be as fun anymore. So I think that's another reason why maybe players are deciding that they don't want to participate in the All Star game, or they're not even focusing on that because of just the way that this season has been going. Um, but yeah, I totally understand that. But so with All Star voting still happening because there has not been a denounce of the game not happening. What is your starting five for each side?
For the West, or are we going West and East, or like are we
Yes,
waiting for
West.
like
Yeah,
captains?
West and East.
West and East. Okay. All right. So I'll start with the East. Personally, I think the point guard from the East. The point guard from the East should be probably Kyrie Irving of the Nets. I mean, even though he did miss out on some time, I mean, he definitely has bounced back and done better. Shooting guard, you definitely have to go with Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. People will argue James Harden, but I mean, he really hasn't done his best. I mean, he has been doing better because he went ever since he went to Brooklyn. But Bradley Beal is just playing insane right now. Um, I think small forward, you have to give it to Kevin Durant of the Nets because you guys like, yes, this is like he hasn't played a game ever since the 2019 finals when he re-injured his Achilles and then or injured his calf. But anyway, like it's his first All Star then back since 2019, and then for power forward, I, for sure you have to include Giannis because also he is the two-time reigning MVP, and he's still dominant in with him just running and dunking. And then for my center, I have to say Joel Embiid for the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, he's done a great job with him and his right hand man, Ben Simmons. With them being top in the East, even though the East is so weak, they're still at the top, and first place is first place. But that's for the East. Now for the West. Um, Guard, I think for sure for point guard, you for sure have to include Steph Curry. I think that's a given because honestly, like he's been doing very well. I mean, he popped off for 57 against the Mavericks last weekend, and he went off for a new career high this season of dropping 62 early in the year. So that right there is pretty impressive. Shooting guard, I'm gonna be a little biased and say that Luka Doncic his All Star, even though his team haven't, even though his team hasn't been doing great, as you know they're second to last in the conference, which isn't really great. Even though I had very high hopes for them, but besides the point, like Luca has been doing really well, even though his team hasn't been doing really well. I think he's been doing great. Ball forward, I mean, another. This is where it gets challenging, and I personally think that LeBron. I think LeBron will be a starter again this year because he's the king. You know, he's the reigning champ, and he brought the Lakers to a title last year, and he's doing really well again. Power forward, this is where it gets challenging. I personally think, and I'm going to be very controversial, and that say that I'm going to choose Kawhi Leonard over Anthony Davis because Kawhi, like he's more the main guy on the Clippers. And while yes, Anthony Davis has been doing really well, I don't think he's not the main guy as of right now because LeBron is still is leading the Lakers, but the AD hasn't been doing that great as of now, right? And then like Kawhi has been putting up like good numbers either. And then for my center, I also have to put Nikola Jokic. The man's been on a tear recently, you know, dropping 47, then dropping 50, his career high. So, yeah, those are my all-star starters.
Yeah, so with your All-Star starters, you kind of like went very non-controversial. You kind of just made the right moves. The more probable of who's gonna win out of like everybody else. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me specifically, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually go with more fan favorites from mine. So, just to let everybody know, whatever I say on this show and whatever Dalton says are most of the time completely different ideas. I might talk for a good 22 minutes, but whatever I have to say does not mean Dalton necessarily agrees. Because that might take up most of our show, but like we have different opinions about certain things. Sometimes he does say I do agree with that, but other times he doesn't, but that's just how we roll. But anyways, so I actually did my All-Star voting today. So let me go to my email real quick because after you All-Star vote on where is it? On NBA.com, they actually send you your All-Star votes back. So for the West, I think the only thing I really have different, Curry at the 1, Doncic at the 2, James at the 3, Davis at the 4, and Jokic at the 5. So basically, we switched out Kawhi and Davis. I like Anthony Davis's play style a lot better, and I don't think you can really have. If we're actually making a full team, I wouldn't really put Kawhi at the 4. I would put LeBron at the 4 and Kawhi at the 3, but you know, you kind of still need some big men out there because Kawhi is not necessarily your big man on the floor.
Yeah, that's fair.
But my East gets a little bit more interesting. So I have Irving at the 1 and Beal at the 2. So maybe your top 2 guards in that league. But my front court is what is really questionable because I've got Durant at my 5. Because the other 2 players that I wanted to put in, I just thought that they should be put in, and I put Jason Tatum at my 4, and I put Gordon Hayward at my 3.
Oh no, you put Gordon Hayward.
I put Gordon Hayward at my 3. Gordon Hayward has been having a phenomenal year with the Hornets. I think he just wasn't getting the good enough playing time that he was in Celtics, and I think that if they utilized him correctly in the number 1 option, he probably would have been great in Boston, but didn't end up happening. Came to the Hornets, is doing phenomenal now. You can't leave out Jason Tatum. I feel like that he's an up and coming superstar. So, yep, that's my picks for my East side. It's a little bit more interesting than just the normal Embiid, Giannis, Durant. But that's just my fan favorite players that I was looking through, and I'm like, because most of it is fan votes, so like whoever is more marketable will probably start over other people. 50% of the vote is marketability. So All right, so Dalton,
Uh,
what is a takeaway that you have just out of the NBA altogether? Anything from the NBA for the first quarter of the season being gone?
okay, so here's my thing: is that there's teams that have obviously like the teams that did good last year are not doing that great this year. So, for instance, my Mavericks. I mean, they all had high hopes ever since making the playoffs in last year, and still honestly should think that they could have beat the Clippers, given the Nuggets a run of their money, and obviously lose to the Lakers. But yeah, I mean, because they were the dark horse of the playoffs, and now with them being second to last, I mean, to be fair, they didn't have Porzingis for a little bit, and then COVID happened on the team, so we were missing like Josh Richardson, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, and so I mean, so yeah, the Mavericks haven't been doing that great. And then also another thing is also the Rockets. I mean, with the James Harden trade, because James Harden was single-handedly bringing them down to because they were believed second to last at one point, and then the trade happened. Oladipo's been doing great, and right now they're like ninth or 10th. I mean, they're in a play-in spot, somewhere around there. But another thing, and the thing is on the East. The East being so weak, when you have teams like the Knicks and the Cavs, who are in playoff contention, which is something that you never hear. Because I mean, the Knicks with them being so young, and then with the Cavs, like also with them being young, but then having some like veteran leadership, which I honestly thought the Cavs would be better than Knicks, and which I think they are. I think Cavs are eighth and Knicks are ninth, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, so and then the Heat. I mean that's probably the biggest surprise is honestly because with them making it to the finals last year and then losing to LeBron and AD, you would think that team that made it to the finals or went pretty deep in the playoffs would do really good in this season, but no, because they didn't get that much time to recover because they didn't have a preseason, they didn't have a training camp, and they didn't have a summer league. So yeah, and then another thing to add is that you have to give the fact that Jimmy Butler has been out for a lot because of COVID-19 protocols, and that's also their big reason why they're seeding so low. And then having Bam Adebayo be your number one guy. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Bam Adebayo is a great player, but he's not that kind of guy that can single-handedly bring a team because he needs someone else with him. And and Jay Butler is that guy. And it's kind of like what the Jazz were because Donovan Mitchell was a phenomenal player, and he can't do it all by himself. That's why he needs Rudy Gobert, Joe Ingles, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Jordan Clarkson. So while yes, the Jazz they're top of the league, and then the Heat are more towards the bottom. I think for me it's just teams that are just flip places. My biggest takeaway.
Um, yeah, I mean, this season has definitely taken a toll. I think there's a bunch of different reasons probably why the teams that you mentioned have been doing pretty well. I think the Heat, yeah, they've just been playing very important games without their best players when Jimmy Butler and they lost some depth to their lineup over the I'm all about depth to the lineup because you could have the best three players on your team, but if you don't have once those three players go out, who do you have to back them up? That's why it was really crucial about the Nets. But the Nets have been proving me wrong. James Harden has been really embracing his role as what he needs to do for the team. Kevin Durant still being the number one option. Kyrie Irving still getting it down on the floor. I think that was very surprising to me because I was very critical about it because I thought there's going to be some locker room tension, but there hasn't been yet. My keyword is yet. We have to let it play out and see what happens. Do I think that they'll make it out of the East to come to the finals? We'll see. I don't really have a clue yet. They're playing pretty well, but I just need to see their playoff style first before I really give my prediction. Another team that I think is really, really underperforming is the Denver Nuggets. I don't know what happened to them because they were a second seed and now they're a sixth seed. They dropped 4 places, and like that fifth through, we'll even say 10th, fifth through 10th seed is really all up for grabs. So they're not far off from being out, or basically like at the bottom of playoff contention. I don't know what happened to Jamal Murray. He hasn't been playing that too great. I think Paul Millsap's probably getting to that age. And Jokic is still doing phenomenal. Jokic is still probably the best center in the league. Who else do they got? Is Gary Harris still on the team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah. MPJ. I think we gave a lot of credit to MPJ before the season started, and he just hasn't performed that great. Like, what's his stat lineup?
Yeah.
I mean, 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, not bad, but like everybody was saying he was going to be like possibly. I mean, that's a good third option player, I guess. RJ Hampton, 1 point, 1 rebound, who is supposed to be pretty good coming out of the draft. Yeah, I think for what they have, they're underperforming, and it's kind of like what's going on in that locker room. Mike Malone's supposed to be coach of the year like last year or 2 years ago. I can't really remember if he won. I think he did, but he is a coach of the year candidate. Have really good players and just seem to can't get it done, and I'm wondering what's going on with that. And I'll give 2 more teams. The Pelicans. They have a lot of talent on that roster. I think they are utilizing it very, very wrong. And I'm not much of a supporter for the Ball family. I think LeVar does a great job with his kids. I think the way he's coaching and parenting them is phenomenal. But I think just the way that LeVar Ball talks about his kids and how they're better than Jordan and will be the best players of all time, it doesn't help whenever they can't back it up. But I don't necessarily think that that's specifically Lonzo's fault this time, because I think that he needs to be in a system where he can run and gun, and he's not with the Pelicans. They like to slow it down with Brandon Ingram. And I think also that with the Pelicans, they're not utilizing him correctly. They're making him sit and be a spot-up three-point shooter, which is not what his game is about. His game is about passing, running the floor. But he needs to be in a system where he's able to do that, or else he's not going to be able to play to his strengths and be the best player he can be. That's why he's been struggling so much, and you haven't heard of him since he basically left the Lakers, because the Lakers with Luke Walton were running and gunning. They were just kept going and going. But no, I think the Pelicans are super underperforming. Brandon Ingram's great, don't get me wrong, but you have like great talent: Josh Hart, Jackson Hayes, Zion, Steven Adams. You have great talent. I know Alvin Gentry got fired, which I really don't think it was necessarily his fault. I thought he was a pretty decent coach, but no, but they're this year with their talent, they should be a top 4 seed with their talent. But I think they're not utilizing it correctly in order for their talent to take them far. And I'm kind of upset about that because the Pelicans are a fan favorite team just because of how much young talent they have. Jackson Hayes, Zion, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball. That's a really good young core. I think that young core is probably better than the Knicks' young core at the moment. But yeah, it's been very, very underwhelming and underachieving for that team. But a team that has been doing phenomenal is the 76ers, who are at the top of the league. I think both conference and league, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, no, they're third behind the Lakers and Utah. But Philly, I think they pulled out that checkbook and was like, okay, we're going to fill up our bench. That's what they really did this season. They filled up their bench. They got some good help. Joel Embiid's probably having the best season of his career. Ben Simmons is playing phenomenal. They got Tobias Harris. They got rid of Al Horford, which was great for them because that contract was eating them up. Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, they just got a lot out of this offseason, and I think it's really showing off. I'm just kind of curious to see where it will go in the playoffs. I think that team has a lot of potential, But are they going to be able to get past the Nets? Are they going to be able to get past the Bucks? Are they going to get past the or Celtics? Are they going to get past Indiana? Because I think those 5 teams probably are the best chances of getting to the finals. I don't really see the Hornets, Atlanta, Toronto, Knicks, Cleveland. I really don't see those teams really getting into the playoffs. But who knows? They could. But I don't think they'll have a deep playoff run. I think those top 5 teams will probably have the deepest of playoff runs, or the best chance of getting to the finals. But who knows? But I think if the 76ers can keep it up, and I think Joel Embiid probably has a vengeance for losing in the finals like that, because it's hard to lose in the finals to a buzzer beater 3-pointer or 2-pointer. It was a 2-pointer, I think. I think that confirmed that.
Yeah, that was the semifinals.
Yeah, and it was a buzzer beater 2-pointer in the semifinals, Game 7, and it just bounced right in. I think that's the most frustrating. I don't think you can guard that better the way that they did, and that was just a phenomenal bounce, and that's frustrating because the game probably would have went to overtime, and I think, hypothetically speaking, the 76ers probably could have won. I think they could have. But even though that was 2 seasons ago, I think the 76ers have a massive chip on their shoulder, and they're playing like that. And I like to see that because they're playing with the vengeance because they know that they can go far. They know they have the talent. But it's just what can they do with it. Joel Embiid has been written as arguably the top center in the league, but he can't do anything. Ben Simmons is arguably a baby LeBron, and he's supposed to be probably a top 5 point guard in the next few years. But can he prove that? I think every big player on the 76ers has a big chip on their shoulder, and they're just kind of playing out of their minds to prove that they are more than just what their stat sheets make up of. And I'm kind of excited to see what they do in the playoffs because I think that with the 76ers, they're kind of an interesting team. I think that they got a lot of high draft picks in the last few years. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. And now you're kind of seeing them in a high playoff seed, and it's like, okay, can we actually utilize what we tanked for? Because if it doesn't work, then we kind of just failed our experiment.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for our episode of Down to the Wire, episode 11, right, Dalton?
Episode 12.
12? Okay, so this is 12. Last one was 11. Go check out the last one. We had our good friend Thomas come on, talk about his favorite team, the Celtics, and what we thought about him and that team, and all of his interesting stories about playing with some famous NBA players. But I hope you all enjoyed. If you didn't, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below maybe some other topics that you would like us to talk about and give our opinions about. Make sure you go follow Dalton and me and our SAS stuff all over the place. And yeah, so we will see you back here Thursday with another video, and we're out. Peace.